On 1st July 2023, Maurizio Pochettino arrived at Chelsea to take on a project that involved developing young players and forming a super team from these young, exciting players assembled by Chelsea. So immediately, Maurizio Pochettino embarked in preseason, a very successful preseason that saw a lot of players get so fit and a lot of tactics being explained in preseason. However, that was not reflected immediately onto the Premier League. And Maurizio Pochettino's tactical system is usually that system whereby he likes to use his fullbacks to generate the width. He likes to build with a back three and have two players in the midfield. And he wants to have an aggressive approach, especially without the ball. And this has been Maurizio Pochettino's philosophy throughout his coaching career. He likes to build with three center backs, have one dropping midfielder, or sometimes he likes to have his wing backs or his full backs playing like wing backs holding the width. And that's what majority of us had expected Maurizio Pochettino to come and implement at Chelsea. A philosophy that actually saw him perform very well at Spurs. But one key philosophy that Maurizio Pochettino has tried to implement at Chelsea and has actually costed him his job is his aggressive approach without the ball. Looking at the stats on your screen, you can see how his Southampton side were very, very aggressive without the ball, showcasing their strength without the ball. And this has signified his love and his preference for Conor Gallagher in the team, because Conor Gallagher gives him this strength without the ball. And how has this actually come to bite Maurizio Pochettino in the long run? Looking at further stats, you can see here how Pochettino's sides have really been the top sides without the ball. You can see his Southampton side, his Tottenham side, and how his Tottenham sides were so aggressive in trying to win the ball high up the pitch and counter press when they lose the ball. So in our video today, we are going to tactically analyze Maurizio Pochettino's time at Chelsea and how his tactics have transformed Chelsea throughout the three phases. And this tactical philosophy has brought a lot of questions with regard to the use of Enzo Fernandez and Conor Gallagher and how this has actually affected Maurizio Pochettino's time at Chelsea. Before we start our analysis, we need to look at the transfers, which players actually came in at the beginning of Maurizio Pochettino's tenure. So, to play the Maurizio Pochettino way, transfers had to be made. And in the summer of 2023, we saw the two goalkeepers coming in, Robert Sanchez coming from Brighton and Petrovic coming from the MLS. And both goalkeepers have had their share of play, with Sanchez playing majority of the first leg, with Petrovic playing the latter stages of the first leg and majority of the second leg. And according to me, they are decent goalkeepers, but not the top goalkeepers that Chelsea are looking for. We also saw the arrival of players who were signed in January, and Colwell, who was actually at loan at Brighton, who also managed to come back. Gusto and Christopher Nkunku managed to come back, managed to end their loans at their respective club and managed to report at Chelsea where they were supposed to report during the summer window, who have been quite integral players for Chelsea. And the most outstanding signings were the signings of Caicedo and Romeo Lavia, two players who had been eyed by Chelsea's big rivals Liverpool, though Lavia has not played throughout the season because of injury, but Moises Caicedo has actually played towards the season, and we have seen both sides of Caicedo when he's playing together with Enzo and when he's playing with Conor Gallagher. And other signings who actually came in this transfer window were Nicholas Jackson, who came in to lead the Chelsea line, a player who had just had some goals and some purple patch at the La Liga, came in. Disasi also came in to play at centre back, and the surprise signing that Chelsea made towards the final day, and that is Cole Palmer, a player who actually turned out to be one of the most impressive signings that Chelsea ever made. So, looking at the table here, you can see that Maurizio Pochettino managed to get Chelsea into the top 6, having Chelsea play in Europe next season. And whether they will play in the Europa League is subject to the results of the FA Cup. But in our video today, we are going to try and look at what made Mauricio Pochettino get fired. What tactical approach that Mauricio Pochettino employed at Chelsea that was not actually acceptable by the Chelsea ownership. I know this is a long video, but it's a long video because we are going to try and look at all the four phases of Mauricio Pochettino's tactical philosophy. So sit back and enjoy this analysis because it's going to be very, very entertaining. Do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. So the first philosophy of Mauricio Pochettino was to start at the training ground, and that is preseason. So Chelsea during the preseason workout schedule is that Mauricio Pochettino expects his teams to be very, very fit. Mauricio Pochettino's teams are renowned for their aggression without the ball, and therefore preseason was a very important time for Mauricio Pochettino. His Gacon training methods where he expects players to run and run and run. And actually, this was a problem that was actually raised in that meeting, that Mauricio Pochettino's intense training methods contributed a lot to Chelsea's injury crisis. The first philosophy that Pochettino employed is the 3-4-3. So this 3-4-3 was seen at the first game of the season, him preferring to have 3 centre-backs. The build-up structure involved the wide centre-backs dropping alongside Sanchez, with Silva starting slightly deeper, and the two number 8s playing ahead of Silva. So this strategy involved the use of wing-backs, and Liverpool, especially in the first game of the season, found it troublesome to try and beat this press that was formed by Chelsea. Because when you look at this press, you can see how Chelsea were easily able to play through. And even when the central passing lanes were covered, the passes in the wide areas towards the wing-backs were actually free. And this gave us a glimpse of what Pochettino tried to do, something that he tried to implement at Tottenham Hotspur, creating overloads in the wide areas with the use of wing-backs and the wingers coming in. The way he used Dele Alli and Son, with Danny Rose and Trippier holding the width in the wide areas. So this is a system that Pochettino actually employed at Spurs. And we're going to see why this system did not work for Chelsea. You can see from this clip in the game against Liverpool the position of Ben Chilwell and Reece James, and you can see the position of the midfielders and the dropping in number 10s in Kane Chukwuemeka, Raheem Sterling, who are playing in between the lines. So Liverpool were quite aggressive by using their front 3 to press their centre-backs, forcing the team to play backwards. And that is something that the team actually tried to face even at the game against West Ham. So Pochettino reverted back to a pseudo back 4, with Colwill playing as a left back and Ben Chilwell playing as a left winger. And down the right, the Sterling and Reece James played quite well, though the Reece James actually later got injured. But the problem is the right half space was not quite occupied, because now when Sterling would dribble, he would immediately run onto a centre back. And this explains why Chelsea had problems scoring goals, because the players in between the lines were not available. Cole Palmer had not come to actually sort out this problem that Chelsea had. Now, this also created a problem down the left, because Colwill, not being a natural left back, would find himself in a problematic situation whether to cover the winger or drop deep, and majority of the time he acted like a centre back, staying away from the winger, and this allowed the winger to actually pick passes, and that's how you saw Chelsea picking these passes in the far post and denying their opponents time and space on the ball. And because of these interceptions that used to happen, sometimes Chelsea would win the ball in this position. But again, now you had Chilwell playing as a left winger. And Chilwell, generally being a left back, will not, in majority of the times, look to dribble, but rather just look to play the ball backwards. And this actually made Chelsea's left-hand side be so inactive during games, and actually limit Chelsea's threat, especially down the left, because they did not have a clear dribbler or a clear attacking threat. And majority of the time when Chilwell received the ball in this position, he was only concerned about getting in positions where he would make outswinging crosses. And because Chelsea did not also have a dominant aerial threat, and had to rely on Jackson, they really suffered a lot. But the positives about this formation is that it brought the best out of Enzo Fernandez, and we saw Enzo Fernandez play really, really well in this kind of system. And he actually had one of his best performances playing in this 3-4-3 system, playing as the second pivot. You can see how he linked up to play very, very well. This system also had its demerits without possession, and I'm going to show you how. As I've explained to you, Mauricio Pochettino likes his team to press aggressively high. But when he's coming up against a back four, first of all, he's overloaded in midfield because the other team has 3 midfielders and they're easily to play. They're able to play quick 1-2s or against Chelsea's double pivot and look to win the ball in these kinds of instances. And once they progress higher up the pitch, they like to have their wingers start out wide. And if Chelsea decides to have their center backs to cover these wingers, then Chelsea are putting themselves in danger, especially when a winger who's better than their center back manages to receive the ball and dribble past them. Then he will be running through to goal without any distraction or without any defense trying to stop him. So this forced Chelsea to have their wing-backs start deeper, and having their wing-backs start deeper automatically opens and frees up space for the opposition full-backs to receive the ball. And this, aided with their midfield underload, really created problems for Chelsea using this 3-4-3 system. And last Gusto came in, Gusto also was not quite aware of playing this kind of system, and majority of the times he used to be caught out during the defensive phases, because now he will be isolated in a 2v1 situations, because when you use center backs as wide center backs, majority of the time you'll find them not shifting across. And even Ben Chilwell suffered this when he played together with Colwill, because Colwill did not know whether he's supposed to play as a center back or as a fullback, and this really created a lot of problems for Chelsea. Mauricio Pochettino now had to make a tactical shift, and this tactical shift involves reverting to a 4-3-3 formation. So how did the 4-3-3 formation work? The 4-3-3 formation relied on the midfield, and the midfield was to try and create those overloads in midfield. And we saw the midfield of Caicedo, Gallagher, and Enzo Fernandez. I actually did a video about whether they were the answers during the season, and it actually worked well for some time. So why did this 4-3-3 why did it not work? And the 4-3-3 relied upon fullbacks, and because Reece James was out throughout the season, it relied on Gusto staying fit, Cucurella, and Ben Chilwell. Though Ben Chilwell suited it better because he's a more offensive fullback than Marc Cucurella. So, in the 4-3-3 formation, Chelsea automatically started with the numerical advantages in midfield. And to couple this, Jackson was also out because he went for AFCON, and now Armando Broja came in. And now, Chilwell, who had been to be relied upon in this position, also got injured, and now Cucurella had to be the one to start at left back. Now, during the build-up phases of the game, Chelsea were quite dynamic in how they looked to build up, dropping their 2 centre-backs on either side of the goalkeeper. And once they looked to be pressed, Chelsea would have that numerical advantage in midfield because they were starting with 3 midfielders. And even when Caicedo received the ball in this position, sometimes he will draw a player out of position and create spaces for Enzo Fernandez to drop deep and receive the ball directly from the goalkeeper or the center backs and look to play balls forward. Having wingers high and wide and looking to make those runs in behind further gave Chelsea an impressive record in this kind of system. And in the game against, in the latter games against Fulham, we started to see Chelsea forming a kind of pattern. But why was this 4-3-3 not sustainable? This is what I'm going to explain to you why it wasn't sustainable. Now, the 4-3-3 is quite a dynamic system. And first of all, we need to acknowledge that Cole Palmer actually came into the team, but this time he was being used as a right winger. But Cole Palmer is not an out-and-out winger, but rather he's an inside number 10. He only starts in this position before he cuts in to occupy positions in between the lines. And Cole Palmer in this position showcased why he was actually one of the key players for Chelsea, because he was the link between Chelsea's defense, midfield, and attack, dropping in between the lines and looking to play those penetrative passes in midfield. So once he took up that position, it was upon Gusto to hold the width down the right. And now the problem came when Enzo was tasked to play that role on the other side. Rather than occupying this position, we would see Enzo Fernandez dropping from that left half space position. You can see the position where Enzo Fernandez was supposed to occupy. And you can see the position of Raheem Sterling down the left. So Enzo Fernandez's role was to actually stick in that position, but because he felt that the ball was not being progressed when Caicedo was marked out of the game, and when Gallagher was not able to actually feed those through balls to him, he was the one who was coming deep to try and receive the ball and try to make things happen for Chelsea. And this left Sterling isolated, especially down the left-hand side. And especially down the left-hand side now, because Sterling was being isolated, it was tasked that Marc Cucurella be the one to make those overlapping runs. And so Marc Cucurella, being the left back in this position, would look to try and make those overlapping runs, but generally Chelsea attacked down the right and looking to try to shift that ball onto Malo Gusto, who received acres of space because of the inside position of Cole Palmer in this game. And when Gusto received this ball, he would look to try and play those quick 1-2s with Cole Palmer, where Cole Palmer would either attempt a shot on goal directly, but majority of the times look to play Gusto down the byline. And once Raheem Sterling also looked to invert in that position to occupy the position vacated by Enzo, then Enzo Fernandez's task was to try and play those penetrative passes, with Marc Cucurella looking to be the player to try and overlap. And Cucurella will be the one to be tasked to hold the width down the right. But you know very well that Marc Cucurella is not quite an offensive threat. He's a centre-back good on the ball, he's a controlling fullback, but he's not quite good on the ball. And even his crosses were not being met because Chelsea also did not have a great aerial threat. And once the opposition would receive the ball or have turnovers in this position, their main aim was to hit those spaces vacated by the two fullbacks. And this is because the wide central midfielders such as Enzo and Gallagher were unable to cover these spaces, especially when the likes of Cucurella and Malo Gusto progressed forward. Injury issues worsened the situation because now Cucurella was tasked to play as right back and Colwill came into the team to play as left back. Now Chelsea had problems because now they had only to rely on their three attacking players to score goals. Jackson, who was out of form, Sterling, who was inconsistent, and Cole Palmer, who was time and time again marked out of the game. And this is the reason why we saw sometime Chelsea actually failing to score or register a shot on goal, because opponent had realized that Chelsea did not have players in between the lines. And because the Pochettino would use either Disasi in this right back position or Cucurella in this right back position, we started to see Cucurella just playing that ball backwards, and down the left, Colwill will not fancy looking to try and overlap against Raheem Sterling. Neither did Enzo Fernandez see the need to progress and occupy that left half space position, choosing to start out wide and looking to try to play those passes. And sometimes once those passes were intercepted, again Caicedo was left isolated in midfield with the opponents looking to run at Chelsea's back line. So Pochettino had to adapt, and in came the 4-2-3-1, a system that he has trusted, a system that he really worked with. So how did this 4-2-3-1 work? So the 4-2-3-1 came with its advantages. It opened up Chelsea to play more attackers in the team, but it also came with its demerits with regards to the defensive side. So in the 4-2-3-1 again, Sterling and Cole Palmer will start high and wide together with Jackson. But Palmer knew when to drop deep and drop in midfield to receive the ball, and sometimes he used to be the silver bullet for Chelsea during build-up, leaving his right wing position, dropping into midfield and receiving the ball in midfield. This was aided because Gusto and Conor Gallagher were not afraid to shift towards the right wing and occupy that position. Now this 4-2-3-1 was quite interesting because Palmer would actually move inwards earlier on, and Cucurella would tuck into play as a third centre back. This will aid Malo Gusto to hold the width down the right. But the problem is Gallagher, rather than moving to hold the width down the left, will just hang in that number 10 position. And once Chelsea received the ball in this position, their main aim was to create overloads down the right with Conor Gallagher, Gusto and Cole Palmer. And when opponents looked to stifle Chelsea in this position by trying to shift across, Chelsea were trying to isolate Raheem Sterling down the wide areas. But again, because Enzo was not pushing forward, Sterling would receive the ball already marked. And when Enzo looked to push forward, he will try to receive the ball and play that 1-2 for Raheem Sterling, with Cucurella also looking to make that overlap. But this also created problems for Chelsea because they were now committing a lot of players during the attacking phases of play. And Caicedo, being the only player being tasked to cover these spaces for the fullbacks and the midfielders who had advanced, left him quite isolated. And that's why in the game against Liverpool managed to destroy Chelsea, especially when Chelsea looked to overcommit players in attack. And once these players managed to bypass Caicedo, they were actually making runs. And this is what saw Chelsea concede a lot of goals during that period. It explains also the 4-2 defeat to Wolves and the number of games they lost even to the likes of Everton. Also, another problem is that when you have fullbacks in the wide areas, the only option they give you is crossing the ball. And as I repeat again, Chelsea did not have an aerial threat in those positions where they could head. If you had Giroud, then maybe it would have been effective. But Jackson's heading was so poor, indicated by the stats that showcased how he missed a lot of big chances in this team. Now, the right-hand side was very effective because Gusto, being a more attacking fullback, knew even how to dribble past his fullback and look to either make crosses in the 6-yard space, but majorly cutbacks. And Cole Palmer, who was occupying that pseudo number 10 position, would receive the ball in this position and immediately look to hit the opponent. Without the ball, Chelsea will sit in a narrow 4-2-3-1 system. Now, this narrow 4-2-3-1 system would also be the problem for Chelsea in this setup, with sometimes Gallagher looking to push forward to try and press, and this allowing midfielders to receive the ball. And once Chelsea's midfielders will look to commit and their backline will choose to stay deeper, then the opposition will just look to easily play through Chelsea, because also Chelsea were not playing with a high line when they were defending. And this would allow the players to receive the ball in the half space region, looking to slip their wingers or their fullbacks and looking to have them make those cutbacks and those positions, and sometimes looking to shift play to the other side where they knew they already isolated Chelsea's fullback. You can see from this clip how Fulham have managed to isolate Cucurella at the right back's back post. They have two players on him, and this is a very dangerous situation because the entire Chelsea team has shifted across and now they are only tasked to ball watch because they cannot stop what is coming. So today we are going to try and look at the statistical comparisons between pre-Pochettino and post-Pochettino. We are going to do this before we do the final phase of Mauricio Pochettino's transformation of Chelsea. So Mauricio Pochettino's stats indicate, the overall stats indicate general form of improvement because his team improved from 12th position to 6th position, from 38 goals scored in the entire season to 77, from 44 points to 63 points. So how did Poch manage to have a 19 points increment this season? And how has this really helped Chelsea? That is what we are going to look at. We must acknowledge that Mauricio Pochettino's tenure at Chelsea has also seen one player flourish at Chelsea, with Palmer winning the Young Player of the Year award. And this is something that had not happened to Chelsea since the time Eden Hazard was at the club. So this is also an achievement that Pochettino has managed to do, to bring out the best of one of his individual stars. So looking at the statistics, you can see the points increased from 44 to 63, indicating a 19 points increment from what Chelsea had last season. And that automatically is a tick for Mauricio Pochettino. From 12th position to 6th, showcasing a 6 position increase from where they were last season and securing them Chelsea Europa League. That is also a tick for Mauricio. Now let's look at other stats that Mauricio Pochettino showcased. And these stats include the win, draw and loss ratio. Pochettino's wins increased by 7, especially that incredible run towards the end of the season. The draws also reduced to 9, they reduced by 3, and the losses reduced from the high of 16 to 11. And the points per game also increased from 1.16 to 1.65, indicating that in the latter future, actually Chelsea will reach that 2 points position where they actually win more games. And this was because of the improvement in the second leg of the season. Further looking at the stats, we are going to look at the overall stats that showcase how Pochettino's side fared on with last season. Remember, Chelsea last season actually managed to scramble for those 40 points, with 10 of those points coming from Thomas Tuchel's time. And if Tuchel's 10 points were withdrawn from that season, maybe Chelsea would have been in a very, very dangerous situation. And 6th position from 12 was a very huge improvement from Chelsea. Looking at the offensive statistics, we are looking at the statistics with regards to scoring goals, and Chelsea last season managed to score only 1 goal per game, and this season they have scored 77. That is so high, more than double the amount of goals they scored last season, with having their 3 players outscoring their last season top scorer, who was Havertz, who scored 11, with Palmer 22, Jackson 14 and Sterling 8, with players such as Gallagher scoring 5. And you can see how this general improvement of Chelsea's offensive threat. Defense-wise is where Chelsea performed poorly. And you can see goals against last season, Chelsea had 47. If they had this season, they will probably be comfortable in the top 4. And you can see this season they have conceded 63. Though because of their the high number of goals they scored this season, their goal difference is a positive 14 compared to last season, which was a positive -9. But the number of goals conceded increased because of how they played throughout the season before Pochettino introduced control in games. And how did Pochettino create this control? And this was the use of the inverted fullback. And we already talked about this, and we are going to see how Pochettino did this, as I did explain in a previous video. So see this. Starting as the left back. So traditionally, how Chelsea used to build up in the we are going to look at how Chelsea build up in the defensive, midfield and in their final third, because this will showcase how Chelsea deploy Cucurella in all these 3 phases of play. So Cucurella in this left back position, where he has been in contention with Ben Chilwell, but recently has seen him being the first choice. So Chelsea used to build from the back by having their fullback starting high and wide, centre backs dropping alongside Petrovic, and most likely Caicedo being the deepest pivot, looking to try to receive the ball from either side of play. But this system has actually provided Chelsea with a lot of problems, with sometimes teams intercepting the ball and actually forcing Chelsea to go long. But in this game, I saw quite an interesting strategy of how Mauricio Pochettino managed to build from the back. And this is very interesting, and that is the use of Cucurella. So Cucurella has been very vital for Chelsea, coming in field and forming that double pivot alongside Moises Caicedo. You can see from this clip here, Marc Cucurella has come in field and is playing as a double pivot close to Moises Caicedo, giving Chelsea centre-backs an outlet to play the ball through the middle. Now this gives opposition a lot of problems because now Chelsea are able to have a 5-man during build-up, using Petrovic as also an extra player, pushing Gallagher and Cole Palmer high up the pitch. But in the game against West Ham, what we started to see is that the two pivots did not start close to goal and rather started to play slightly wider. And I'm going to explain how Chelsea achieved this. So when West Ham tried to press Chelsea aggressively high up the pitch, I was really fascinated with how Pochettino improved Chelsea. Precisely the use of Thiago Silva. Long time ago, opponents knew how to effectively press Chelsea, win the ball off Chelsea, and begin to transition from their defensive side of play to the attacking side of play. But in this game, we saw how Chelsea were building the play in a controlled manner, and partly this happened because of the position of Cucurella. So Cucurella would shift from the fullback position and come in field, and Thiago Silva, who was also very good in this game, would drop and play in this anchor position, giving Chelsea a 4-man build-up strategy. Look at this clip. Chalobah and Badiashile have dropped alongside Petrovic, giving him options, and Thiago Silva has positioned himself just outside the defensive position. This is very important because now Chalobah, who's not a fullback, playing in this position, automatically draws a winger to press him, and allowing Noni Madueke to drop deep, receive the ball, and look to have a 1v1 against a fullback, which is something that Noni Madueke fancies a lot. But the position of Cucurella is very important because now Chelsea have numerical advantage throughout the middle of the pitch. So how Chelsea built from this position was quite interesting because now the centre backs could receive the ball with little or no pressure, and sometimes Petrovic could find Cucurella in this midfield position, and Cucurella in these positions will try to effectively progress Chelsea from their build-up side to the attacking side. Like in this clip, you can see that the centre-backs have found Cucurella, and Cucurella is now turning with the ball because a midfielder had picked Caicedo. Cucurella is free, he drives with the ball in midfield and is able now to play the ball to Noni Madueke, and you can see Palmer making a run, trying to drag the fullback out of the way. Now, because of Cucurella's inside structure, even if opponents mark Caicedo, Cucurella is very comfortable on the ball and is able to help Chelsea build play with his short passes, as well as trying to play those ambitious passes over the top for the runs of the wingers and the fullbacks. And this really gave West Ham a lot of problems because they could not understand how they should press Chelsea. Also, Cucurella was not afraid to carry the ball forward when he was not pressed and look to try and link up with players ahead of him, which is also another key and interesting facet of an inverted fullback. Now, Chelsea having their wingers wide 1v1 with the fullbacks was also quite interesting, and down the left, this was also giving Chelsea a lot of strength, and I will be very eager to see when Raheem Sterling gets back into this team and actually starts down the left, because I believe his dribbling ability combined with Noni Madueke will give Chelsea a lot of dynamism in the wide areas and give Chelsea a lot of strength. Now, because Chelsea was so effective with the way they created those central overloads during build-up, West Ham decided to sit deeper. So again, we look at Cucurella's role in the midfield third position. So what happened is that we know that Pochettino wants one of his double pivots to push forward and help the left hand flank, and this will see Gallagher moving to occupy the left half space. This will be aided because Cucurella is comfortable vacating his fullback position and coming in field and playing close to Caicedo, with Chalobah tucking in and forming a back three with Silva and Benoit. And you can see here clearly the position of Marc Cucurella in this team. He's playing in that inverted position. Now he has dragged the marker out of away from Caicedo, and you can see now Badiashile can play a simple pass and Caicedo can receive the ball in space. He's also using his dummy position to create spaces for Caicedo to receive the ball. You can see in this 3-5 structure, opponents are not sure who they should mark. Should they press the three center backs, because if they do press them, then the midfield region, they are overloaded with 4 players because Chelsea has formed that box midfield. Recently, I've been talking about how Chelsea don't usually attack down the left, and Chelsea's reliance down the right makes them so predictable. But we have seen with this inclusion of Cucurella in midfield has opened up Chelsea's left flank. And how has this happened? Because Cucurella starts in this midfield position, allows Gallagher or whoever plays alongside Caicedo to play slightly forward in that half space, opening up space for the left-sided midfielder. Cucurella is also not afraid to receive the ball in advanced areas of the pitch and look to play in Mykhailo Mudryk. And position of Gallagher in this position enables Mudryk to receive the ball with time and space. You can see Cucurella, because he's using his left foot in the middle of the pack, majority of the times he's trying to open up Chelsea's left. He receives the ball, plays the ball to Mudryk, and Mudryk is receiving the ball in space, and Conor Gallagher is occupying that half space position, though I would prefer Gallagher to be making that run to try and pull the fullback away from Mykhailo Mudryk. Now, Mudryk receives the ball and plays the ball back to Cucurella, and now Cucurella could have the opportunity to play Mudryk if Mudryk made a run, or when Gallagher would have made a run down that left side. And this is one of the advantages of having a left back in these kind of defensive situations. When opponents try to cover Moises Caicedo and deny him space on the ball, then Cucurella becomes an option. And because opponents underrated his position, you can see him here. He receives the ball, and once he receives the ball directly from the center back, he is receiving the ball unmarked. You don't see a lot of midfielders trying to crowd him out, because midfielders are more concerned to deny Caicedo that space. Cucurella is able to receive the ball in space and be able to turn, and now he's turning, looking at West Ham with options ahead of him. He's not turning when he has been marked, but rather with a lot of space. Cucurella in this position again is able to turn, and now West Ham are left in a dilemma whether they should push forward and press Cucurella and free up Gallagher and Palmer to receive the ball in the spaces in between the lines, or to sit off and try to cover those spaces. Jackson drops deep. Cucurella plays that ball to Jackson, but again we can see that Gallagher is not making that run beyond Jackson. If he made that run, then the return ball would be very good if Cucurella would play the ball over the top for the runs of Gallagher. You can see these kinds of positions were very important for Cucurella in this position, because now he's able to influence the game from this position because he's receiving the ball with time and space. And this is emphasizes one key strength of Cucurella, because majority of inverted fullbacks are not good on the ball. He is. When teams decide to sit on both of them, then the likes of Palmer can drop deep and receive the ball directly from the center backs, something that we saw Palmer do time and time again in this game. And this has given Chelsea a lot of numerical advantages in this game. Now, this has also created a lot of problems for opponents, because now if they use their midfielders to sit on the two Chelsea's attacking number 10s high up the pitch, then it leaves space for these double pivots to influence the game. And if they choose to have their forwards to sit on them, then they deny themselves that counter-attacking threat and allow Chelsea's wide centre-backs to receive the ball and actually carry the ball forward, something that we saw Chalobah doing excellently. And because Cucurella is in this deeper position, inverted, it allows Chelsea to have space on other areas of the pitch that they will not normally have. And these are one of the advantages that Cucurella's inversion gives Chelsea. Also, him being in this position gives Chelsea numerical advantage, especially around their build-up, because now they have 5 players during their build-up. And not only this gives numerical advantages in build-up, but also in the middle of the park, because now they have that box-shaped midfield, and they are able to circulate the ball between all the 4 midfielders with Gallagher, Palmer, and Caicedo and Cucurella. And Cucurella's left foot opens up Chelsea's left hand side and opens up that position in midfield that was normally closed. And his ability to thread in through balls is one of his greatest strengths. You can see here West Ham are trying to press Chelsea. You can see Cucurella is receiving the ball, but Cucurella is able to play a penetrative line breaking pass and break West Ham's midfield line and find Chelsea in that attacking line. You can see here Cucurella has played the pass, and that pass has been played in between West Ham's midfield line, and he's playing that pass to Jackson, and by just one pass Chelsea have transitioned from the build-up phase to the attacking phase. Jackson is receiving the ball, and you can already see runners making runs. But again, I was not fascinated with Gallagher in this game because he was not giving a lot of optionality for Chelsea, especially in that left half space position. And because of these through balls, we started to see so Mauricio Pochettino is actually he did not perform poorly at Chelsea, but rather the ideologies between him and the club did not align. And this is from a tactical point of view. So Mauricio Pochettino becomes actually among the 6 managers who have coached Chelsea. Actually, we can just use 4 of them who have been sacked by this Gallagher system. So is Gallagher wrong with sacking Pochettino? So it actually does not look like it's a sacking, rather it's an agreement. And this is because Pochettino's philosophy of football does not align with the squad that Gallagher were actually building. And in tweets, they have indicated that key players that Gallagher signed, such as Enzo, Caicedo, and Nkunku, are players not fashioned to play Mauricio Pochettino's aggressive, high-pressing kind of football that involves direct attack. Gallagher insists that they want to sell both Chalobah and Gallagher, who have been quite instrumental for Mauricio Pochettino to actually play his football. However, Gallagher emphasized that their main aim and their main position with regards to how they expect Chelsea to play is possession football that emphasizes on control and domination of the ball. Therefore, players such as Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo, Romeo Lavia, and Nkunku are suited to play this possession-based system. And the possession-based system examples are like Brighton and Manchester City. And Mauricio Pochettino is more like a Klopp kind of system that is aggressive, pressing and counter-pressing football. So Pochettino departs not because of the problems that happened last season, but rather based on conflicting interests in the future. We wish him all the best, and that is how he managed to improve Chelsea. And I'll be doing videos to try and look at potential replacements for Mauricio Pochettino. Thank you all for watching this video till the end, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.